Okay, Capricorn Rising, in around 18 months, you'll understand what this video was actually about. I'm Sook Boy. You're awesome. Let's talk about it. If you can, think back to the period of your life between 2007 and 2009. This is when we saw the nodes shift into your second house of Aquarius and your eighth house of Leo. What were the main motivations, themes, agendas moving through your life when it came to your financial situation? Right now, there is a repetitive pattern, a repeating narrative, so to speak. Now, I'm not saying you will experience the same circumstances or the same situation. History doesn't necessarily repeat, it echoes or it rhymes. Now, they shifted into the second house and the eighth house back in July. This is very subtle. You probably haven't even noticed it yet, but it will become more significant over the next 18 months because this is the area of your chart that you will experience eclipses moving forward. Generally speaking, an eclipse is symbolic of major beginnings and major endings in whatever area of the chart they occupy. The second and the eighth house is known as the financial axis. I'm not going to lie, this could test your comfort zone, but ultimately it is kind of favorable for you, Capricorn Rising. This time I ask you to audit your financial entanglements. And on a deeper, psychological, more intimate level, what are the consequences of some of your more important relationships, romantic, business, platonic, or otherwise? In particular, what resources you share together? What debts do you share together? What assets do you share together? Who is dependent on you financially? And who are you dependent on financially? The South Node tends to audit anything that isn't really working for us. It incinerates anything performative when it's in the sign of Leo, for example. So if these agreements, negotiations, contracts, relationships were shallow in any way, you may have to let them go over the next 18 months. Now, money could be moving through you, and this is why this could be rather positive. Jupiter in the eighth house is kind of overwhelming. It's a more is more thing, but when it's in a money house, it could mean that you get the grant or that you come into some money from an inheritance, for example, and you have an opportunity to pay down some debts. Or if you're taking care of other people, if you're the provider, they may need extra financial support. Or vice versa, maybe you have someone that you've been very dependent on financially or intimately, emotionally. Maybe you've been attached to someone's circumstances for whatever reason, and that might begin to fray or dissolve in some way. The South Node really deconstructs anything that isn't really working for you, but it also deconstructs your comfort zone, and it wants you to move into that second house of financial independence, livelihood, access to your own resources, so you have more freedom when it comes to, thriving, being able to independently put the food in your belly and the roof over your head, so to speak. It's really important to understand that we never really lose our comfort zone. As we grow, as we develop, we find new places for it to occupy. And in your case, this is about having financial independence, more self-confidence, and more access to your own resources, being in control of what you own and what they own. In other words, what's a you problem, what's a their problem. So whilst the South Node incinerates anything that isn't working for you, coping mechanisms, unneeded attachments to other people for whatever reason, the North Node amplifies momentum and it gives you an instinct like you're in the right direction, but it is very unfamiliar, yet the more you invest in this area, the more rewarding it becomes at scale. Now, Aquarius, second house, is really innovative with how it spends money. And so maybe your instincts will become a bit more acute when it comes to your investments and where you want to put that money for your future. Again, Aquarius is very future orientated. It's not really in the here and now. It's thinking about the version of you that doesn't quite exist yet. Now, you might tell yourself, look, I'm already financially independent. I don't need to worry about that. Well, then this could be a manifestation of the people that you actually provide for, forcing them to find their own financial independence. And maybe that's where the tension lies. You've associated your character with being the provider because it gives you more control potentially. And as those relationships dissolve or change or evolve in some way and they become more financially independent, maybe that means you lose a little bit of yourself. Maybe you lose a bit of that control. Now, we're working with polarities, so also vice versa. As you become more financially independent, if you've been dependent on someone else, you might be stripping them of their control over you. Just saying. Now, your chart ruler and the ruler of your second house, signs in common, is Saturn. And Saturn is in an angular house, the fourth house of Aries. This fourth house of Aries has everything to do with your family, your private world, and your property. So immediately I'm inclined to think about, yes, an inheritance, potentially mortgage that you're taking on. Maybe you're moving into a new location, having a different relationship with a landlord, for example. Maybe you're restructuring the pre-existing home, renovating. People are moving in, people are moving out. Maybe your parents are selling their home, for example. Now, Saturn in Aries isn't really having the best time. It's really impatient and there's a lot of pressure to get things done. Aries is very much having your foot on the gas, but Saturn is very much having your foot on the brake. So you're really trying to get somewhere, but you just can't. But more than anything, there is a lot of attention, assertion, action, and impatience trying to get this across the line. So have you been trying to buy a property or move or help your parents with a financial situation? Are you supporting your parents? Are you at that age where you're taking on more roles and responsibilities and you become the authority figure and they're testing you in some way, or that circumstance is testing you in some way? Now, property might not be the case. The cost of living's through the roof. Who knows what your situation is? But in any way, shape, or form, it gives you an opportunity to restructure your beliefs and your attachments to your finances, your relationship with material wealth. Potentially, you are a little bit more unconventional, a little bit more experimental. Maybe your relationship with material possessions changes. Maybe it's not such a big deal. Maybe you don't associate your character to your pay bracket, for example. Potentially, the South Node is really trying to teach you to be a lot more financially savvy, have a lot more financial hygiene. Maybe there's a nasty tax bill that comes through that really pushes you over the edge, so you start taking your finances seriously and trying to project, the future you and what kind of access to resources they need. Now, the Jupiter in the 8th house is ruling your 3rd house of communications. This could be around selling things, launching a local business and the finances related to that. Being able to trade, communicate, and negotiate with people with a different approach. Also, the Jupiter is ruling the 12th house, and this has everything to do with your spirituality as well. This is about the work you do when no one's watching. This is about you in solitude. So maybe you've been incubating an idea for a very long time, or researching maybe a potential investment for a very long time, and over this next 18 months, you might pull the trigger. In any way, shape, or form, a lot more attention and instincts are going to move towards that 2nd house, restructuring, recalibrating, approaching it potentially from a completely new perspective. More than anything, it gives you an opportunity to build more wealth, build self-confidence, or change your attachments to your pre-existing wealth. And again, your relationships to people you depend on financially, and vice versa. Now, as a thank you for watching this entire video, please feel free to send me a DM. I'll send you a coupon code for 30 Australian dollars off my natal and transit readings for new clients exclusively. Only love, positive vibes always. Hope that helps. Okay, bye.